There you go.
Well, welcome to the February 8th, 2022 session of Tangerine SDR and Hamside technical sessions. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been working on resurrecting some of my HPSDR radios and making sure they all work. I had a couple of issues, some of which may have to be with fixed IP addresses and things. So anyway, I'm learning what I knew 8 years ago, relearning. So always fun. It's amazing how much you forget stuff. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Steve. It's been a very busy week, as always, here. I've made a lot of good progress on the Hamside workshop, as I was mentioning before. We have all of our abstracts in. It looks like a very good submission. One thing I'm very happy about is it looks like we have enough for a really good poster session, which I really like, because with poster sessions, it's really a chance for people to kind of like walk around and mix and mingle and have, you know, more two-way discussions or side discussions. And it looks like we might actually be able to have that this year. Of course, we have a great selection of oral talks for Friday as well. Let's see, the agenda is not yet public. I'm going to be, I'm just giving the program committee a day or so to look at it and make some comments, and then I'll start, you know, contacting the presenters to, you know, work things out with them. So right now, we don't have a hotel room block at the hotel yet, as we were also talking about before. The reason for that is when we were originally working on the contract, they wanted us to, you know, sign a contract for like 30 rooms, and anything that we ended up not selling, you know, the university would have been liable for financially. And with the whole COVID thing going on, we were a little skittish to sign something like that. But I'm talking to them again, and I'm trying to see if I can get a contract now where I do buy a certain amount of rooms, and then they would let us add to those rooms at a, you know, a better rate. So I just started that conversation with them today. They're supposed to get back to me tomorrow with those room rates. If there's something, I'm going to ask to see if I can have it so that if you say you're part of the Hamside group, you could be added to that room rate. So when I do know that, which I'll hopefully know within the next day or so, I will definitely post something to the listserv about that. Until then, if you're worried about getting your rooms, just making sure you have one. Like Jay said, you could try booking a room normally through the regular website, and then you can try to get it converted over later. But that, you know, I can't promise that will work out, but that's what we're told should work out. But again, I can't promise it. So if you want to do that, you can. Otherwise, you can wait a couple more days, and hopefully I'll have a group rate that will be appropriate. Other than that, I've booked my flight today. My wife, Rachel, she's a faculty specialist at the university. She's putting in a poster. We booked her flight today too. So, and I'm working on booking my students' flights over the next few days. So I think we are getting ready to actually make this happen. So W2NF, back to net.
Very good. Well, next on the list is Bill Engelkey, AB4. Go ahead, Bill.
EJ.
AB4EJ.
I always get mixed up if it's EJ or JE. So
yeah. Bill, I've printed out your paper and I've started reading it. So I'm working on it.
Good. Yeah. And I have to sign in using my UA credentials, and I have not so far been able to figure out how to put my call sign in my ID there on Zoom. Been working on the illustrations for the paper, and still struggling with getting multiple illustrations to get everything lined up to where the color bar is right and all this and that. And so it's kind of slow going because I'm just learning Matplotlib for the first time. So, but anyway, we'll get there. Back to Ned.
Fine business. And next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
I've been working on various small things between interruptions, mostly some outdoor power and temperature measurement stuff for experiments that don't require going all the way to the woods, but some solar powered stuff. So that's been pretty much all I've been doing lately. Back to you.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is David, N1HAC. Go ahead, David.
There we go. Oh, hello, everyone. I'm thinking a lot about antennas. I want to work up a presentation for the workshop. And, we have a number of different designs that we've used. But I was looking for what's out there in the commercial market and saw that there's the MLA 30 that doesn't have a very good preamp on it, but there's an MLA 30 plus that there hasn't been a lot of documentation on it, but it says it's much better. So I ordered one of those. They're pretty inexpensive. And hopefully we'll have some info on that shortly. But a lot of different ways to skin the cat for supplying antennas to our instruments. I guess I'll leave it at that. Back to Ned.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is David Waugh, KE8QEP. Go ahead, David.
Okay, well, good to see everyone tonight. I guess the big excitement for me this weekend was passing my general exam.
Yay!
Which I guess
congratulations.
wasn't that hard. I took it via Zoom. And I also did get over to Bob Benedict's house and got, I think it's actually from John Gibbons, a new local board, which I can remove the RJ45 and convert to be the remote board after mine got flooded. And it's the orange board, which, and if you have a copy of Werner's colors here, this is what Darwin used to describe colors. I believe the color of the board, this orange, is orpiment orange, which I think is an arsenic containing mineral. But they define the color as being the neck ruff of the golden pheasant or the belly of the warty newt. So I don't know what color will be in the next revision. I guess Scotty's not here to worry about that.
Tangerine SDR. It's tangerine.
I like the warty newt.
Well, it's not in this book. So
What book
but,
is that? What colors?
it's Werner's nomenclature of colors.
Werner's name. Okay.
Now it could be an F.
It's actually what you get when you ask the PC board shop for orange. So that's the only orange they've got.
Well, maybe they like newts.
So it's neck of newt or something.
Well, no, it's orpiment orange, which is the arsenic mineral. But then they define it as, they give an animal and a vegetable as a cross reference. So it's the neck ruff of the golden pheasant or the belly of the warty newt, or as a vegetable, an Indian cress.
Newt belly, I like it best.
Yeah, newt sounds like something out of the Addams Family, the original TV series. Eye of Newt.
But that's all I have. So back to
Could
that.
be Monty Python.
Okay, well, let's go on
You
down
changed
the
me into a
list.
newt.
Got
Well,
better.
I
I'm gonna
got better.
try to keep things on.
Sorry, Dave.
Yes. So after David Waugh, we have Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Just continuing to work on some things around the house. Installed some new lights down in the workshop so I can probably actually see the surface mount component on my workbench now. So we're getting closer to building something down there. Back to Ned.
Well, fine business. And next is Yeoman Kim, KD2 MCR.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, I've been pretty much preoccupied with our rocket project that I'm involved with as a ground support. So we're trying to look at radio absorption level during certain type of auroral activity. So that's quite related to radio kind of propagation issues, which you guys are interested. So that's actually measured by riometer. So that's what I've been working mostly on so far. Other than that, there's nothing to report. So back to Ned.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Dave Woodward. Comments?
Hey, sorry, I must be having audio issues here. Everybody's coming through kind of garbled, and so I've really missed everything. I've been cut out several times, have no comments, but I'm trying to listen the best I can. Thank y'all so much for letting me in. Have a good evening.
Good luck with that, and hopefully the clears up. Next on the list is James Wolford. Go ahead, James.
You got me now?
Yep.
Yeah. Evening, Dave, the group. Not much going on here. I posted 2 links to the chat earlier of 2 radios I stumbled across this week. One of them's a crowd supply that hasn't gone live yet. I don't really know what the pricing is, but the second one is a $5,000 radio that's got a 10 gig Ethernet on it. I know we talked about price levels before, but I thought that was rather interesting. The gist of the second one, the expensive ones, it's actually got an integrated GPU built into the radio, so you can do a lot of the processing local. But $5,000 for a radio is a little steep. So the other one's probably cheaper, but they haven't put it up yet, so I don't know what it is. It's microwave, like 6 to 20 gigahertz or something like that. So with that, back to the net.
Well, fine business. Scotty, I think $5,000, you got them beat a little bit. Next on the list is JWB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Good evening, everybody. Pleasure to be here as always. Looking forward to Alabama, to the space conference, the science conference as always at the Space Center. Not a lot new here in amateur radio to report. Been very busy in the cybersecurity world with the Society of Automotive Engineers, and that's been taking up a lot of time. And for the next several weeks is going to be taking up a lot of time. So other than that, nothing really new to report. Hope everybody is staying safe and well, and we'll catch you later on down the log. Back to net control.
Fine business. And next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, all. Very, very busy here, but no positive results to report. Thanks, Dave.
Very good. And next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. A lot has happened this week. More progress with integrating the Trimble Res 720. That's the L1, L5 timing receiver into GPSD. The developer is working on the new protocol, and he's slowly working different portions of the GPS data into GPSD, so it could be reported outside GPSD, like with clients. Also, I've been working with Bill. Bill has shipped out those 3D printed parts of the 3D printed vertical seismometer. Thanks again, Bill. I really appreciate it. I also found out about a stabilizing board for it, where it will stabilize the spring against thermal changes. So I sent an order to Express PCB to have that board made. There has been some more news on EBSynth. That's the modulator for the coherent BPSK mode on VLF and LF. EBSynth is a program that takes an encoded message from EBNOT. That's the message encoder and decoder, and it modulates that onto a GPS locked carrier. The author, Paul, the author of VLFRX tools, is making progress in allowing support for a GPS pulse per second signal instead of a divided down 10 megahertz reference from a GPSDO. This will make it easier to use because you don't have to build a divider, and you could just simply connect it up like you would in a VLFRX tool system. So work is going well on that. He actually found out that a lot of those cheaper USB sound dongles, they have full duplex operation. They could do recording and playback at the same time. However, the clock used for playback on some of the cheaper dongles is derived from is derived using using the clock on the USB from the PLL. This hasn't worked well with synchronizing everything, so he was unable to make a good carrier. But with the audio injector stereo and other sound cards that use the same clock signal, everything has been working okay. So I'm going to be building an EBNOT rig with a Raspberry Pi and an audio injector stereo. But that's in the future once he gets that ready. Lastly, I sent Scotty the measurements and a picture of the DUT board for the analog to digital converter. Scotty, hopefully that should be all the information that you need. Let me know if you need any more. Oh, let me know if you've had any part numbers for the buffer in mind. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Well, fine business. And next on the list is Michael, AA8K. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, thank you very much. Greetings to everyone listening. Sorry about the camera. It's going to require a system restart. It's been doing that ever since I upgraded. Back to you, Dave.
Fine business. And next on the list is Scotty, WA2DFI. Go ahead, Scotty.
Hi, Dave, and good evening to the group. Yeah, I've been digesting Jonathan's posts and working on getting that integrated into the data engine, or data adapter, DE adapter, and kind of treading water here, getting ready for our CAD opening, which is coming up pretty quick. Right after Hamcation, we're going to be able to get into CAD, and so I want to get things ready for that. And Jonathan, I think I have enough information. I haven't taken a close look at the buffer yet, but that's on my list when I get to that point in the schematic. I'm trying to integrate your connector in. And I think it'll fit just perfectly off on the edge of the board, with the 2 holes. So it'll actually mate up just like the DUT board and the baseboard meet up on the current setup, where you've got one and they kind of attach like this, and one hangs over the edge of the other. So that's been it here. You're getting ready for Hamcation. That's the big deal this coming week. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. When do you head out, Scotty?
Wednesday. So 2 days.
That's exciting.
Yep.
Pardon me?
That's exciting.
Yeah. And I just got the rush job of DCC flyers printed up, so I'll have something to actually hand out for DCC that's coming up in September. So I just got the artwork this morning, so amazingly I can get enough of them printed to hand out. So that's good. And then Dan's working on a demo, and I don't see Dan here today, so you would probably give an update on that. But guess we have to go to Hamcation and see it.
Yeah. So you, Dan, Mel, and Bill?
And Bill, yep. And by the way, Bill, just go to the desk and get your badge. It should be there for you.
Okay, yeah, I've got a medical procedure I have to have done on Wednesday, so I won't be heading out till Thursday morning. So I'll get in late in the evening Thursday, probably see you Friday.
Okay, so you can come in early and going to that desk and picking up your badge there on
Roger
the
that.
south end. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So that is all. I'm going to bring a magnetometer board too, just to show off. And I'm not going to have a working setup. Dan's going to have a working whisper system.
I'm going to bring a damaged magnetometer to give to you for your further analysis.
Okay, good. We can show that off.
Do you know if
Correct.
those forums or if your forum will be broadcast?
They say that it is, but I don't have any information on how you're going to go to connect to it. It's supposed to be a hybrid thing. Whether they're going to record it and show them later, or they're going to show them in real time, I'm not sure. Then the years past, they've always just been recorded and available later. And I don't know what they're going to do this year, though, since it was virtual. Last year it was virtual. So hopefully it's going to be a combination so you get to watch.
Thank you.
Have you been to the forum page to see if
Negative.
okay. Say that would be a good place to start. And Nathaniel, I'm working on your abstract right now, so you'll have
Thank
it
you.
by the time we're done here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry it's taking so long. It's just like I've been fighting with the people on getting this house built, and it is just I think if I had to do this over again, I just would go buy a house. I don't think I'd build one. It's just insane.
Yeah.
My contractor called me. He says, "Well, the electrical company came out to take a look at at what they had engineered, and it turns out that my architect just changed the plans, and now there's suddenly we went from 600 amp service to 1,000 amp service." And
Wow.
and the SRP, the local power company, says, "Well, if we'll give you all the power you want, but you got to tell us how much." And you told us 600, and so we engineered the whole system for 600. We got the size of the wire and the conduit, everything all engineered, the transformer picked out, and telling you how big to make the pad that the transformer has to go on, because we're responsible for that. And now all of a sudden you change it to 1,000 amps. So my contractor, he just doesn't know what to do. He's like, every step of the way, this kind of stuff has happened.
Oh.
And it turns out that the city, you're gonna love this. I went back to research why it happened that way. We originally had 1,000 amp service because the electrical engineer who is responsible, this electric power engineer, added up all the loads that we had, and I put in a lot of extraneous, like welder and car lift in the garage, and I ran electricity to the water heater locations in case I didn't like the gas water heaters and I wanted to replace them with electric ones. Well, he has to add all those loads up, and he comes up with over 800 amps. So he says, "Well, you can't have 800 amp service if you're gonna," and I go, "But I'm not going to be using those. So anyway, we went in and we ripped all those out, and we got the load down to 590 amps, which is below 600, right? So 590 amps. So we wrote it all up, one panel, 600 amp panel, all done, submitted to the city. The city comes back and quotes some obscure NEC 2017 regulation that says you can't have more than one feeder to a building from a main panel. And the house is big enough that we have more than enough circuits to fill an entire panel. So what he did is he ran a main feeder from the main box to each of the two sub panels in the house. And he had the two sub panels put on opposite sides of the house. Okay, so now here we got the house with two main panels, basically, one running half the house and one running the other half of the house. Well, my contractor says, well, you don't need to do that. It's cheaper to just put them right next to each other and run all the low current wire from the panels to the loads. So now we got 225 amp panels, each fed off the main panel, and the NEC code says you can only have one. Interestingly enough, the 2020 version of the NEC, which the city of Phoenix is not using, the 2020 version says you can have up to 6. So if we were using 2020 NEC, it would be no problem. But then I read further, and it turns out there's a subparagraph under the section that says that you're allowed to do multiple feeds to a house if the house is big enough to require more than what can be fed off of one feeder. But it says by special permission. I'm going like, well, by whom? The Pope? I mean, who has to give me, who has to tell me that it's okay to do this? I don't have any idea. I would think that my electrical engineer would be able to say, look, you know, this makes sense to do it this way. But I just don't know. So right now, everything's stopped dead. And the people in the city who are reviewing this are out. They weren't in the past 3 days. And nobody's taking their workload. So I just have to go like this and wait.
I'll give you permission, Scotty. I'll give you permission.
Okay.
What you described is exactly the same thing I have at my house.
So do you have a title or something I can threaten them with? You're like exalted supreme electrician.
Bachelor of Science in
Alabama.
Electrical Engineering, just like everybody else in this whole
Do you have a PhD?
I don't think you need a PhD for this. Actually, probably what you need is to have gone through the apprenticeship program to have a PE. That's probably who you need.
PE is what you need.
My electrical engineer has a PE.
Yeah.
And they told him no, and he had so anyway, what happened was, and this is the part I don't understand. The PE, after we sat with him for hours, and the first thing I told him right now is at the beginning was there will be only 1 meter on this house. Whatever we have to do, there's only going to be 1 meter because I'm not going to pay 2 electric bills with 2 minimum charges with 2 accounts. No, we're doing 1 meter. And according to SRP, 600 amps is it. That's all you get for 1 meter. So I said, we're going to make this fit into 600 amps. We are going to do that. So what he does when the city says, oh, you can't have 2 feeders, he goes back to the old drawing and he adds back in all the loads that we took out, comes up with 800 amps, says you got to have 1,000 amp service, and he puts these big expensive panels back in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would fire the guy, except that it's like, you know, firing the guy when you're 2 feet from the finish line. You can't, you have to pay someone to do all that engineering over again. And, you know, frankly, all it is addition. Okay. You're just adding up the loads. This is not like rocket science. This is like, you know, freshman PE school or something. I mean, I looked at how he did it before. I mean, that's probably why he's mad at me, because I kind of made his job seem pretty simple. But he's about 70 years old and a cranky old obnoxious guy who's just used to doing it his own way. And my contractor said, well, he's not doing engineering. He's just specifying the maximum, just throwing the maximum hardware at it. He put in $100 breakers.
Ooh.
Screw in breakers. And you know, we've got like 80 breakers in the house. He says he's adding $10,000 of cost to the cost of your electrical system in your house for no reason at all. And to see, to me, when you say engineering, that means that you figure out what the optimum way to do it is, and you rate things You figure out what's needed, and then you design up to what's needed. You don't just throw stuff at it. I mean, if I did that, then we'd have the data engine would have, you know, a $5,000 FPGA on it because, hey, you know, why not? You know, it's obviously better than a $500 one. So let's just use the biggest one we got. They all forget that somebody has to pay. And that would be like me.
So Scotty, I want to mention Dan has joined the group. Dan, do you have any comments?
No, no, Dave. I'm having a lot of issues here this evening.
Oh, okay.
Having some household problems and having some computer problems as well. So anyway, heading to Orlando in a couple of days and hopefully see a few people there. And that's about it from here. Thanks.
What does your demo look like, Dan?
Demo looks good. That's actually working.
I mean, what is it?
It's a Whisper receiver using a Raspberry Pi and the IQ2.
Now, I also want to mention Michael showed up. He's a friend. He's local to where Dave Whitten and I are. And I invited him to come and listen because he's very interested in Whisper. So, Michael, do you have any comments?
Good evening. I'm just happy to be here. First time interested in it, as you said, and I'll be listening for things I might be able to, in ways I might be able to contribute, or definitely I'll always be learning stuff. So that's cool.
Very good.
Welcome. Yes, Michael, I just approved your Hamsci listserv membership. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Let's
back
see.
to open discussion.
Well, two comments. One, I was told, Scotty, you know what the fastest way to get the electrical company to come fix your wires is?
What's that?
You call them up and you say, this is down, but don't worry, I have a PhD in electrical engineering. I'll fix it.
Oh, yeah. That was like the guy that called the police and he said, there's somebody broke into my garage and they're rummaging around in there. And the police said, well, you know, we don't have any cars. We can be there in 2 hours. And so he hangs up, dials again, calls back and says, there's a guy in my garage. I got my pistol out here and I'm going to go out and take care of him. Click. And they were there in like 3 minutes. And he says, and they says, I thought you shot the guy. And he says, I thought you didn't have a car.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I'll fix it myself. Yeah, that's like my contractor that says if you don't help me, this is the price. But if you help me, it's extra.
Yeah.
But this contractor is really good because I'm acting kind of like extra pair of eyes and ears. So I'll show up there because it's really close to where I live right now. So I can just stop over and take a look and see what they're doing over there. And it turns out let's just say I don't have a very high opinion of construction workers, but you know, I got to keep it to myself because they're all over my property. So I can't really disparage it too bad. But what we got 2 acres and it's pristine desert, never been trampled on. And so what we've done is we put up ropes around the area that you're allowed to be in. Okay, so we roped off the areas that you're supposed to stay out of. Well, I don't care. They just cut the rope and back their truck right over all the cacti and destroy everything. And it's really, he was really mad because they brought in some dirt, some fill dirt to cover the culvert pipes that they put in. And he told them where to dump it. And they cut the rope and they backed out over fresh desert and they dumped it over that. So now they have to come back and pick the dirt up. And he says, well, at least those guys will never dump it there again because they know better now. But, you know, sorry, but you can't really ever restore it back to the way it was. I mean, it's desert that's been there for hundreds of years. It hasn't been ever disturbed except maybe people walking on it. And we've got lots of barrel cactus and small little cacti that have spread out all over, and lots of creosote bushes. And the creosote bushes will come back, but the cacti take a long time to grow back because there's not much water. And so I'm really just, it's like a war zone. I mean, I understand that you got to have room to work, but you got 2 whole acres and we're covering like a quarter of 15%. And yet you seem to expand everything out to fill the entire lot. So we'll see how well they put it back the way it was. We'll see if I ever actually get into the house. That's, like I said, I should just have gone and bought one. It's like, this is ridiculous.
Scotty, where is that? Scottsdale?
It's Phoenix.
Phoenix. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think actually most of the other jurisdictions are easier. I heard that, well, we did our commercial building in Tempe, and the first thing the guy says in Tempe is that, well, I wouldn't recommend you even get any permits. And I'm going like, say what? I mean, you're the guy that issues the permits and you're telling me not to get them? And then he says, well, the fines aren't that high and you can probably just get away with not having any permits at all.
That doesn't sound like good advice.
And I'm going like, oh yeah, okay, that's good. Thanks a lot. Well, we're going to get permits anyway. Sorry. And that's the thing is, I can get away with it, right? But my contractor gets fined 10 grand a day for violating the rules because he's a commercial entity. So it's not as easy for him to just thumb his nose at the rules.
There's also another negative consequence to not getting permits when the code requires it. That is, if you have an insurance claim and the insurance company decides to dig around and find out that you did something that did not have a permit, it doesn't matter. I mean, if a drunk driver goes off the road and plows into your house, the fact that you didn't have a permit for an electrical thing, a meteor falls out of the sky or an airplane crashes into your house, it doesn't matter. You put in a water heater and you didn't have a permit for it, they're going to disallow the claim. It doesn't matter what the cause of the loss is. A drunk driver, they're just going to say, oh yeah, you did something, no claim, you didn't have a permit, we're not going to honor the claim.
Sounds like Geico.
Yeah, and
no kidding. So what happened is a guy, a bicycle cuts off the car in front of my wife, of the car in front of her. He stops. She stops. The guy behind her didn't. So he plows into her, pushes her into the car in front. So now we got a 3-car pileup caused by a bicycle. And really it's caused all by the guy in the back, because if he had not plowed into my wife, she would not have hit the car in front of her and nobody would have hit anything. And it would have been just another, expletive deleted, yell at the guy. So Geico was his insurance company and it was his wife's car. And Geico said, well, the wife said he didn't have authorization to drive the car, so we're not paying the claim.
Oh.
And they didn't pay. And I'm going like, well, that's the exact case when you need insurance. Is when somebody, what happens if somebody stole her car? They wouldn't have permission to use it, right? So then they wouldn't pay. If he steals a car and runs somebody over, then they wouldn't pay. This is a little bit, I don't think they should have let him get away with that.
Tell it to the
What happened
judge.
was, so they went after the guy, and the guy moved back to Pennsylvania and is living in his mother's basement now, and they lost track of him, and he hasn't paid anything. So the insurance company's just out. So my insurance company paid. So now that's a mark against us, right? Because we made a claim.
So can I steer this back to Hamsai
Yes,
and
please,
Tangerine?
please do that.
So any more stuff on Hamsai and Tangerine?
Anybody going to Hamcation besides the 4 that Dave mentioned?
No, I was going to go, but I decided I'd skip it one more year just to be sure.
How about Hamvention? Anybody going to Hamvention?
I am.
All right.
In fact, that was the second thing I was going to say. So I think Hamsai is looking at having a presence at Hamvention again this year. So,
all right, so you're going to be in the same booth,
yes.
room 5 or building 5?
I believe so. Ward Silver is taking care of that. I think Ward Silver and Yasmi are sponsoring Ham Size presence in terms of a booth. And so he just sent me an email about that today. And I think he's also, again, so those details are still being worked out, but we'll probably be back in the same area. I just emailed Terry over at forums asking for a ham sci forum. So I think what we'll probably do is we'll probably try and draw on some of the better presentations from the ham sci workshop and ask them to present again over at Hamvention. And then the other thing I'll do is from the poster session, I think I'll try and take some of the posters from the ham sci workshop and see if we can hang them up in the booth area over at the Hamvention.
Are you going to have presentations in your area back there?
I haven't figured that out yet. I think that I can talk to Ward more about that. And I think we still have time to figure that out if we want to have like booth presentations. So we certainly can have booth demos. We might have booth presentations again, but we just started planning that today. So
I take it Hamvention as of now is on. Okay.
Yeah, it was questionable a few months ago. I guess it's on now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jay, you had a comment?
Yeah, a question that brings up a question about Alabama.
Yes.
The ham quad. Is there any talk, because of the fact that where the conference is going to be held is literally right next door to the Redstone Arsenal and the Marshall Space Flight Center? Has anyone or is there going to be any arrangements to have a tour, which they do have facilities and the ability to offer tours of the Marshall Space Flight Center, after the conference, like,
not at this time, but I also know that at this time, I believe they're still very locked down in terms of COVID. They're still very much we are going to have as many people work remotely as possible. So
right.
As we get closer, I could ask about it again, because I do realize we are so close to NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. And so I actually have a bunch of the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center physicists on our organizing committee for the HamSci workshop. So they're actually helping us with the organization, and they're also going to be doing some presentations. So we actually do have a significant involvement from NASA at this workshop.
Just an administrative item.
Yes.
If that does happen, please remember to bring proof of U.S. citizenship with you, because the Marshall Space Flight Center is located on the Redstone Arsenal. That is a U.S. Army military base, and they just don't let anybody on that base. So if you need, if you want to participate, if that happens, bring something that, like a U.S. passport or something that clearly indicates that you are a U.S. citizen. And the reason I know that is because AMSAT had their their space symposium there a couple of years ago, and that was a requirement to participate in the tour there.
And that is, it's two forms of ID, a social security card or driver's license, or a driver's license and a birth certificate, or your passport, or if you work for the Department of Defense, you can present your CAT card.
Yeah.
All right.
U.S. passport works just fine.
So that's that's all you need, right? Just that?
Correct. That when I was there the last time for the last AMSAT Space Symposium, you just showed your passport at the desk where you got your ticket, and no problem after that. They're good. And just for general information, the Marshall Space Flight Center is the backup control room for the space station. So the primary one is at Houston at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, but Marshall is also staffed 24/7, 365, because they're the backup. And it's really fascinating. And I urge everyone to attend because the Space Museum there, even if you don't get to the Marshall Space Center, the Space Museum is really good, really cool, really, really cool. And the food wasn't bad either. The food was pretty good too.
So yeah, if you make it down, a day early or you stay a day late, you can definitely go to the museum. And the museum has told me that I can get complimentary passes to go to the museum for people who attend the Hamsci workshop. So I have to figure out, if you're planning on showing up to the workshop early, I have to figure out how to get you those passes. If you're staying to go to the museum after the workshop, it's no problem. But I still have to work out that detail with the museum. But we should be able to get you passes.
And I strongly urge you to go to the museum. It's really cool. It's really, really worth the effort. Really is.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I'm planning on getting there a day early, so I'm going to try to spend at least part of the day seeing the museum.
Yeah, they've got a lot of real stuff. This is all real. And if we're fortunate enough to be able to get a tour of the Marshall Space Flight Center, they've got some really cool test stands. We were only able to drive near it, but imagine this. You've got a Saturn V rocket, nose to tail, and it's in the museum. A real one, not a mock-up, a real one.
By the way, Jay, they've got that standing up straight now. It's not sitting on the side anymore.
Oh, really?
It's fully assembled.
Yeah.
About 400 feet tall.
Yeah, cool. But on the Space Flight Center, the Marshall Center itself, they've got a gantry, which is a vibration test stand, because they took a functional Saturn V, nose to tail, the escape tower down. It's a vibrating platform to do vibration test stand, to do vibration testing. And they've got a whole bunch of other stories about when they were doing rocket testing, testing the engines. It's really, really cool. They've got a full A12, a Lockheed A12, which is the predecessor to the SR-71. I strongly urge people to attend and to make the most of this trip. It's really, really worth the effort. Back to net control.
I don't know. I want to see what's
have a
going on
space.
at
They do
Scotty.
have an A12 at the Air Force Museum in Dayton too. Been there. That's a good thing to do if you have an extra day at Hamvention.
I agree. So Hyomin, is Hyomin still on? Yeah. Hyomin, it looks like Jimmy Rader submitted an abstract and is planning on attending in person too.
Jimmy Radar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From UNH.
Sure. What is it presenting? Do you know?
He submitted autonomous ground magnetometer station using DRV 425 flux gates. So he's looking to field flux gates. All right, ED.
I wonder if he's a part of the high school magnetometer project that UNH is leading. UNH has their own funding to support high school students magnetometer project. I wonder if that's part of it or not.
It says we have developed a prototype ground magnetometer station that uses 3 Texas Instruments flux gate on a chip, DRV 425 sensors. The design is low cost and uses a particle photon or particle electron microprocessor IoT device with either Wi-Fi or cellular connectivity to process and transmit data. We will present the data from a prototype installation in Athabasca that is located near a high quality science grade flux gate for comparison. they would like to deploy several tens of these devices with the help of the ham site community for science and space weather applications at no cost to the operators. However, the operators would have to commit to install the stations and tend to them as necessary. The effort would be funded through a major funding agency. At this meeting, we would like to gauge the interest among ham radio operators for such a project.
Is there any co-authors?
Yes. Juan Carlos Batista and Michael Hirsch.
Yeah, I'm not aware of those. What I know is that at UNH, Mark Lessard, my former grad school advisor, is heavily involved in new magnetic material, core material development to improve flux gate magnetometer performance. I wonder if that's related to that, but yeah, for those who might be interested, flux gate magnetometry has been really interesting because since its first invention during the World War II to detect submarine activity, the German submarine activity, it's been developed, and then the recipe that was, I think, originally developed by NASA, I don't remember, but the US has been using this original recipe until quite recently, but what I know is that the recipe was lost. So UCLA and NASA have been using whatever that was left over from the big stock. Now I think the stock is gone, so the recipe is gone. The stock is gone, so I think that a lot of different institutes are trying to develop a new type of material, and then UNH is part of it. So there are a lot of hidden recipes, just like Coca-Cola. Some portion, some part is known, but some part is not so known. Like, for example, like heat treatment, how long, at what temperature, what kind of alloy has to be mixed in, something like that. So the one big part of the effort has been to make the crystal as big as possible so that noise can be reduced. The noise usually comes from the magnetization process, where if you have so many crystals, then they interact with each other. So ideally, if you have a single crystal, like, which is not possible, then noise can be greatly reduced. So the effort has been focused on reducing the number of crystals. To do that, you have to have a proper heating, and you have to know how long. So it's like a baking process. You really have to know how to bake cookies properly.
Could you repeat, please? I had a distraction here. What the recipe is for? Could you please repeat that?
The magnetic core material for flux gate magnetometer.
Thank you.
You know, the
Thank you.
electronics has been so much developed that there's no really room for reducing the noise out of it. So the only place where the noise can be reduced is a magnetic material, the core material, and the recipe is lost. So yeah, the people are really interested in developing new type of material to reduce noise. That is called the Barkhausen noise. I think the noise that comes out of the magnetization process. So when you look at the hysteresis loop, the loop has to be really smooth. But if you look at the hysteresis loop, it's really like jittery. So if you can make the line really smooth, curve, the hysteresis loop very smooth, then that is where the secret is. You know, how to make the curve really as smooth as possible. So it's completely magnetic material side of it. So I'm not really expert on that. So
that's interesting. He was into noises of various sorts. I presume it's the same guy, because how many people are named Barkhausen? But there's a noise in tube based horizontal sweep units in systems in televisions
Mm.
that would create a VHF interference on the screen.
Maybe that's the same guy. Maybe he's a very
Yeah,
noisy
it must
guy.
be the same guy.
Maybe he's noisy, very noisy person.
Heinrich Barkhausen.
Barkhausen. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
Isn't the trick for larger crystals just cooling it slower? I mean, that's how it works in mineralogy.
Yeah. How to cool it down. Yeah, you need to know how long you have to cool, but I think the temperature, maximum temperature, and how long, I think that's important too. But also,
Yeah, I'm sure
alloy.
it's a complex mix, and getting the crystal that you want
Mhm.
is very tricky.
Right.
So that's interesting that they lost the recipe.
Oh yeah. I mean, back in the days, NASA hired like so many people to develop like one material. Now we don't really have that kind of level of funding, right? So
Right. Well, probably it's someone developed it, had the recipe. It's like, as you say, it's like Coca-Cola. They knew how to make it but then they went out of business or got sold, and there it went.
Yep. And sometimes like really great secret can be, handled very poorly. Like maybe they wrote down some kind of recipe somewhere and then put it in like maybe refrigerator magnet or something like that. It could happen. Like
Yeah, or it could even be as simple as one guy knew how to do it.
Yeah.
He dies and it's gone.
A little bit different story about like Saturn rocket. The original design has been changed so much because back in the old days when during the Apollo project, things have been so much rushed because during the competition with the Russia, they changed the design so much that the actually original design, when you look at the final product, the Saturn V rocket, you cannot really compare the actual design with the what was shown on the blueprint. So nowadays people cannot repeat the job. I mean, they cannot.
Yeah, well, I know when we decided to start making another heavy lift vehicle and wanted to duplicate the Saturn V, and as you say, much of the plans were lost. They were going to space junkyards and surplus houses looking for the old parts to see if they could
I think
engineer it.
What's his name? Amazon, Jeff Bezos tried to salvage one of the Saturn rocket that was sunk in the ocean. I think they actually retrieve it, and then they try to copy the original design because that is completely different from what's on the blueprint. So
they were able to salvage the Apollo 11 first stage engines from the bottom of the Atlantic. I've seen them on display. They're in very bad shape.
But it's interesting how even such a big institute like NASA doesn't really keep the original design, doesn't really have a proper documentation.
And David, I think you may be right. It may be just someone knows the little secret to how to, observe this and then do this. And I mean, I run into this all the time with histology stain protocols that you may have a very elaborate, set of instructions, but you try to follow them, they don't work, and then you eventually contact someone who's done this before, and they're like, oh yeah, you just need to wait until it gets a little bit milky and then wait 30 seconds to do this. And it's probably something like that.
Or it could be an ego issue. Sometimes people have secret recipe and then they don't want to share. So then, yeah. Anyway, Nathaniel, sorry for digressing a little bit, but yeah, I'll be interested in looking at Jimmy Radar's abstract.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Also, on the magnetometer people, the email group that we have, Dave Witten found a paper where they were evaluating the PMI boards that we use for a mission to Europa. Now, they haven't picked them, but they were evaluating for that. Just for information.
Yeah, I haven't read that paper yet, and I that's on my list of things to do, because that looks interesting.
Jim, did you have a chance to do any more looking at the data by any chance from Tonga?
I unfortunately have not had much of a chance. I had planned to, but then I got tied up. John had needed me to confirm his upload software, and I got myself into a ditch doing that. I've done it now, but just got that done and just hoping to get back on that. I was hoping to get to it today, hoping to get to it tomorrow. I've got a few additional ideas that I need to pursue. But no, I have not had a chance to make much progress since last week. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Oh, there was one thing that I found out in terms of southern ionospheric disturbances. Electron precipitation causes short scale SIDS on the order of like minutes. So I don't believe that what I saw in the plot January 15th was electron precipitation, because that was much more longer scale.
Yeah. In fact, I'm not sure the way this is getting filtered. I'm not sure we could see anything of a few minutes duration, could we? Because of the filtering we're putting on the plots.
On the grape data?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of filtering that's going on there.
Right.
And I think that filtering is fine. I think the thing we're most likely to see are probably these traveling ionospheric disturbances. Let's see. And the filtering I think is I don't think the filtering is going to wipe that out.
I doubt it. Yeah.
And the raw data is still available if you want to see the unfiltered data.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I'm going to say 73.
I got to
Talk to you next
scoot to
week.
73.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See most of you next week. Or all
Yeah,
of you
stay
next
safe,
week, and some
everybody.
of you before then.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
You too.
7:30.
Peace, everyone.
Later.